My wife laughed when I stripped off my shirt in divorce court, until she saw what I'd been hiding underneath. The judge's jaw dropped. Her lover fled, and that was just the beginning of her nightmare. My name is Dylan Brennan. I'm 45 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. I owned 3 tattoo parlors across Phoenix, Ink and Steel Studios. Started with one shop in a rough neighborhood when I was 28, worked my butt off, and built it into something real. Something that mattered. The kind of business that puts food on the table and pays for a nice house in Scottsdale. Allison used to love coming to the shops in the early days. She'd sit in the corner, sketching while I worked on clients, saying she found the buzz of the machines peaceful. Said it reminded her of rain on a tin roof. She was working as a curator at a small art gallery then, and we talk about opening our own place someday, combining tattoo art with traditional gallery pieces. Those were good times. Simple times. But success changes people, or maybe it just reveals who they really were all along. As the business grew, Allison grew distant. She started talking about elevating her career, about networking with serious collectors. The way she said serious always stuck with me, like what I did wasn't serious enough. Like the art I put on people's skin somehow didn't count as real art. The first real sign something was wrong came about 8 months ago. I gotten home early from the shop. Unusual for me, but one of my artists had called in sick, and I didn't have any appointments after 3. I walked into our kitchen to find Allison quickly closing her laptop, her face flushed. "Hey, babe," I said, reaching for a beer from the fridge. "You're home early, too." "Oh, just finishing up some work," she replied, but her voice had this weird pitch to it, like when you're trying too hard to sound normal. I should have pressed then, should have asked more questions. But I trusted her, and trust makes you stupid sometimes. Instead, I just kissed her cheek and headed upstairs to shower off the day's work. That night at dinner, she was different, distracted. She kept checking her phone, claiming it was work emails, but her gallery closed at 6, and it was almost 8. When I suggested we watch a movie together, something we used to do every Tuesday, she said she had a headache and went to bed early. The pattern continued for weeks. Late nights, mysterious phone calls, and a growing coldness between us that I kept telling myself was just stress. Allison had always been ambitious, and the gallery world was competitive. I made excuses for her because I loved her, because I thought marriage meant giving your partner the benefit of the doubt. The truth is, I was so busy being a good husband that I forgot to pay attention to whether I still had a wife. The moment I realized something was seriously wrong came on a Thursday night in March. I'd been working late at my newest location, training a young artist named Jake who showed real promise with traditional Japanese styles. By the time I locked up, it was almost 10:30, and I figured Allison would already be asleep. But when I pulled into our driveway, her car wasn't there. I called her cell, and it went straight to voicemail. That wasn't like her. Allison always kept her phone on, claimed it was because the gallery sometimes had security issues that required immediate attention. I sat in my truck for a few minutes, telling myself there was probably a perfectly reasonable explanation. Maybe she was having drinks with colleagues, or maybe there was some gallery emergency. Then I remembered she'd mentioned something about a new exhibition opening soon, something involving contemporary urban artists. She'd been excited about it, more excited than I'd seen her about work in months. Said it could really put the gallery on the map. I decided to drive by the gallery, just to check. Maybe she was there, working late on the installation. Maybe I could surprise her, take her out for a late dinner at that little Mexican place she loved. The gallery was dark except for the security lights. Her car wasn't in the parking lot. That's when I called Trevor Walsh. Trevor was my business partner in the second shop, the one in Tempe near the university. We'd known each other for about 5 years, ever since he'd answered my Craigslist ad for an experienced tattoo artist. Good-looking guy, smooth talker, the kind of person who could charm customers into bigger pieces and higher tips. He specialized in realistic portraits and had built up a solid following among college kids and young professionals. What I didn't know then was that he'd also built up something with my wife. "Hey man," Trevor answered on the second ring. His voice sounded weird, kind of breathless. "What's up? Kind of late for you to be calling." "Yeah, sorry," I said, still sitting in the gallery parking lot. "I'm looking for Allison. She's not home, and I thought maybe she mentioned something to you about working late tonight. You know how she sometimes stops by the shops." There was a long pause. Too long. "Trevor, you there?" "Yeah, sorry. I'm here," he said finally. "No, I haven't seen her tonight. Maybe she's with friends. Something in his tone bothered me, but I couldn't put my finger on what. All right, thanks. See you tomorrow. I drove home and waited. Allison finally walked through the door at 12:45, her hair slightly messed up and her makeup smudged. She looked surprised to see me sitting in the living room. "Dylan," she said, her hand flying to her chest. "You scared me. I thought you'd be asleep. Where were you?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Gallery meeting," she said quickly. "You know how these exhibition planning sessions go. We lost track of time." I studied her face. In 12 years together, I'd learned to read her tells. The way she touched her neck when she was nervous. How her voice got slightly higher when she wasn't being completely truthful. Both were happening now. "Which restaurant?" I asked. "What? You said you had a meeting. Where did you meet?" She hesitated for just a fraction of a second. "Oh, we ordered in Chinese food. To the gallery." The gallery that had been completely dark an hour ago. 3 months later, I found myself sitting in a Maricopa County courthouse, watching my wife of 12 years tear apart everything we'd built together. The divorce proceedings have been brutal from the start, but today felt different. Today, Allison seemed particularly confident, almost gleeful. She sat across the courtroom with her lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman named Patricia Wells who specialized in high-asset divorces. Allison wore a navy blue dress that I bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago, and the irony wasn't lost on me. "Your Honor," Patricia Wells announced, standing with theatrical flair, "my client has endured years of neglect while supporting a husband who prioritized his tattoo parlors over his marriage. She deserves substantial compensation for the sacrifices she made." Judge Martinez nodded and turned to me. "Mr. Brennan, how do you respond to these claims?" I started to speak, but Allison suddenly laughed. Not a quiet chuckle, but a full, mocking laugh that echoed through the courtroom. Every head turned toward her. "I'm sorry, Your Honor," Allison said, composing herself but still smirking. "It's just, Dylan thinking he can negotiate anything significant is hilarious. He's always been so manageable." The word hit me like a punch to the gut. Manageable. Like I was some kind of pet she trained. That's when I stood up and did something I've been planning for weeks. Slowly, deliberately, I unbuttoned my dress shirt. The courtroom went dead silent. Even Judge Martinez leaned forward, clearly curious about what was happening. I shrugged off the shirt completely. The gasp started immediately. Allison's smirk vanished entirely, because covering my chest and arms were tattoos that hadn't been there 6 months ago. Not random pieces, but a carefully planned design that told a story. Across my chest, a phoenix rising from flames. Down my right arm, a detailed sleeve showing a man breaking free from chains. And over my heart, the words "unbreakable" in bold lettering. But the real shock was my physical transformation. The soft, comfortable man Allison had been married to was gone. Months of intense training had carved away every ounce of weakness, leaving behind muscle and scars that spoke of a man who'd been through hell and emerged stronger. "You want to talk about neglect?" I said, my voice carrying clearly through the silent courtroom. "Let's talk about how my manageable wife has been having an affair with my business partner for the past 8 months. Allison's face went white. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "Your Honor, I have photographic evidence, phone records, and financial documents showing that Mrs. Brennan has been stealing from our joint accounts to fund her relationship with Trevor Walsh." Patricia Wells jumped to her feet. "Your Honor, this is completely—" "Sit down," Judge Martinez commanded. "Mr. Brennan, present your evidence." The courtroom erupted into whispers as I laid out the photographs on the defendant's table. Images of Allison and Trevor entering hotels, leaving restaurants together, kissing in the parking lot of my own tattoo shop. But the financial records were the real bombshell. "As you can see, Your Honor," I continued, pulling on my shirt but leaving it unbuttoned, "my wife withdrew $43,000 from our business account over 6 months, claiming the money was for gallery exhibitions that never happened." Allison found her voice, but it came out as a croak. "Dylan, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" I turned to face her directly. "Explain how you convinced Trevor to help you embezzle money from the shops we built together. Explain how you plan to take half my business and disappear with him to San Diego." Judge Martinez held up his hand for silence. "Mrs. Brennan, Do you have a response to these allegations? Allison looked desperately at her lawyer, but Patricia Wells was frantically shuffling through papers, clearly unprepared for this turn of events. It wasn't supposed to happen this way, Allison stammered. That's when I played my final card. I pulled out a small digital recorder and placed it on the table. Your Honor, this device contains recordings of conversations between my wife and Trevor Walsh, discussing their plan to drain my accounts before filing for divorce. Arizona is a one-party consent state, and all recordings were made in my own home. The color drained completely from Allison's face. She turned to look at the back of the courtroom, where Trevor had been sitting. But his seat was empty. He'd slipped out the moment I started presenting evidence. Play the recording, Judge Martinez ordered. Allison's voice filled the courtroom, clear and unmistakable. Dylan will never see it coming. He trusts people too easily. By the time he realizes what's happening, we'll be long gone with enough money to start fresh. Then Trevor's voice. And you're sure he won't fight back? Guy seems pretty passive. Allison laughed on the recording. Trust me, Dylan doesn't have it in him to fight for anything. He'll roll over like he always does. The silence that followed was deafening. Judge Martinez removed his glasses and cleaned them slowly. Mrs. Brennan, he said finally, based on the evidence presented, I'm ordering an immediate freeze on all joint assets pending a full investigation into allegations of fraud and embezzlement. Allison shot to her feet. You can't do this. I have rights. You had rights, I said quietly, until you decided to steal from me and mock me for being loyal. The next morning, I received a call that changed everything. Detective Maria Santos from the Phoenix Police Department wanted to meet about Trevor Walsh. Apparently, my business partner had been busy with more than just my wife. Mr. Brennan, Detective Santos said as we sat in my lawyer's office, we've been investigating Mr. Walsh for several months. Your evidence just gave us the final pieces we needed. She spread photographs across the conference table. Trevor with different women, entering and leaving expensive hotels, always paying with cash. Bank statements showing deposits that didn't match his tattoo income. And most shocking of all, documentation of a second business he'd been running behind my back. He's been using your shop's reputation to book private clients, Detective Santos explained. Wealthy women mostly, charging them triple rates for exclusive appointments and pocketing the difference. We estimate he's stolen over $200,000 from your business. I stared at the evidence, feeling a mix of rage and vindication. How long has this been going on? At least 2 years, she replied. Probably longer. Your wife wasn't his first mark, Mr. Brennan. She was just the most recent. That afternoon, I drove to the Tempe shop where Trevor worked. I hadn't been there since the court hearing 3 days ago, and I wasn't sure what I'd find. What I discovered was an empty building with a for lease sign in the window. My phone rang as I stood in the empty parking lot. Unknown number. Dylan, please, we need to talk. Allison's voice was barely recognizable, cracked and desperate. We have nothing to talk about, I replied. He's gone, she whispered. Trevor took everything and disappeared. The money, my car, even my jewelry. I have nothing left. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. That's what happens when you trust a con man, I said. Dylan, please, I made a terrible mistake. I love you. I've always loved you. We can work this out. I looked at my reflection in the empty shop window. The man staring back wasn't the same person who'd trusted blindly for 12 years. This man had backbone, had learned to fight for himself. Allison, I said quietly, I'm hanging up now. Don't call again. Wait. Dylan, wait. I'm pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It's yours, she continued desperately. The baby is yours. We made love in January, remember? Before things got bad between us. I did remember. One cold night, when she'd seemed like the old Allison, when we'd connected the way we used to. But I also remembered the timeline Detective Santos had shown me. Allison, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Trevor's been working you for 2 years. The baby isn't mine. The silence stretched between us before she broke down completely. I ended the call and blocked her number. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. 2 weeks later, I sat in Judge Martinez's chambers for what would be the final hearing in my divorce case. Allison's lawyer had withdrawn from the case after the fraud allegations surfaced, leaving her to represent herself. She looked like a shadow of the confident woman who'd mocked me in court just weeks ago. "Mrs. Brennan," Judge Martinez began, "the forensic audit has revealed extensive financial fraud. You've stolen $67,000 from joint accounts and business assets. How do you plead?" Allison's voice was barely audible. "Guilty, Your Honor." Furthermore, the judge continued, "DNA testing has confirmed that you are carrying another man's child while attempting to claim spousal support from your husband. This court finds your conduct reprehensible." I watched Allison crumble as Judge Martinez delivered his ruling. No alimony, no claim to my business, and criminal charges pending for embezzlement and fraud. "Mr. Brennan," the judge said, turning to me, "this court awards you full custody of all marital assets, plus restitution for stolen funds with interest." But I barely heard him. My phone was buzzing with a text from Detective Santos. "Trevor Walsh arrested in Las Vegas. Full confession. He's been running this scam for 5 years across 3 states." As we left the courthouse, Allison made one final desperate attempt. She grabbed my arm in the parking lot, tears streaming down her face. "Dylan, please," she begged. "I have nowhere to go. No money, no job. Trevor left me with nothing." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then gently removed it. "You made your choice, Allison. You chose to trust a con man over your husband. You chose to steal from me. You chose to mock me in court. But I'm pregnant," she sobbed. "What am I supposed to do?" "That's Trevor's problem," I said. "Or whoever the real father is." I walked to my truck, leaving her standing alone in the courthouse parking lot. In the rearview mirror, I could see her calling someone frantically, probably trying to find another man to save her. 6 months later, I received divorce papers to sign. Allison had moved back in with her parents in Tucson and was working as a waitress to support herself and the baby. Trevor was serving 3 to 5 years in state prison after pleading guilty to multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. As for me, I rebuilt the Tempe shop with honest artists and expanded to a 4th location in Flagstaff. My business was stronger than ever, and more importantly, so was I. Some lessons are worth the price you pay to learn them. 3 weeks after my divorce was finalized, I received a phone call that would add another chapter to this nightmare. Detective Santos asked me to meet her at a downtown Phoenix cafe, saying she had information about Judge Martinez that could affect my case. "Mr. Brennan," she said, sliding a manila envelope across the table, "we have a problem." Inside were photographs that made my blood run cold. Judge Martinez entering a high-end massage parlor known for offering more than therapeutic services. The same judge who'd presided over my divorce, who'd seemed so righteous when delivering his verdict against Allison. "How long have you known about this?" I asked. "We've been investigating him for 6 months," Detective Santos replied. "But yesterday, we intercepted communications that suggest your ex-wife knew about his activities." She handed me a printout of text messages between Allison and an unknown number. The conversation made everything clear. Allison had tried to blackmail Judge Martinez with these photos to influence my divorce proceedings. She attempted to contact him the night before your final hearing, Detective Santos explained. Threatened to expose his activities unless he ruled in her favor. I felt sick to my stomach. Did it work? "No," Detective Santos said firmly. Judge Martinez immediately reported the attempted blackmail to judicial authorities. That's how we got involved. Your case was decided purely on its merits, Mr. Brennan. But there was more. The unknown number in Allison's messages belonged to a private investigator named Marcus Webb, a disgraced ex-cop who specialized in gathering dirt on public officials. "Webb has been working with your ex-wife for months," Detective Santos continued. "They've been building files on several judges, prosecutors, and city officials. This was bigger than just your divorce." I stared at the evidence, realizing how close I'd come to being destroyed by people I'd never even known existed. "What happens now?" "Judge Martinez's cases are being reviewed, but yours is solid," she assured me. "However, we need you to testify about what your ex-wife told you regarding her plans." That evening, I called my lawyer, Sarah Johnson, and filled her in on the latest developments. Her reaction was swift and decisive. "Dylan," she said, "this actually strengthens your position. Attempted judicial bribery is a federal offense. If Allison was working with this Webb character to blackmail judges, she's looking at serious prison time. The next morning, I found myself in FBI offices downtown, giving a formal statement about everything I knew regarding Allison's activities. Agent Robert Hayes, who was leading the corruption investigation, showed me evidence that Webb's operation had been running for over 2 years. Your ex-wife wasn't just a victim of circumstance, Agent Hayes explained. She was an active participant in a conspiracy to manipulate the judicial system. As I left the FBI building, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Dylan, this is Marcus Webb. We need to talk. Your ex-wife has information that could hurt you. Meet me tonight at the Desert Moon Bar on Camelback Road, where I release everything to the media. I showed the message to Agent Hayes, who immediately called for backup surveillance. Mr. Brennan, he said, we'd like you to take that meeting, but you'll be wearing a wire. The Desert Moon Bar was exactly the kind of place you'd expect to meet a corrupt private investigator. Dimly lit, half empty, with the smell of stale beer and broken dreams hanging in the air. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing the FBI's recording equipment under my jacket. Marcus Webb was already there, sitting in a corner booth with his back to the wall. Mid-50s, gray hair, the kind of weathered face that had seen too many dirty deals. He gestured for me to sit across from him. Dylan Brennan, he said, raising his beer in mock salute. The man who destroyed my best client. I didn't destroy anything, I replied. Allison destroyed herself. Webb laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think this is over? You think because you won in court, you're safe? He slid a thick envelope across the table. Your ex-wife documented everything about your business operations. Tax irregularities, cash payments, employee violations. One phone call to the IRS, and your tattoo empire comes crashing down. I opened the envelope, scanning through documents that looked official but felt wrong. These are fabricated, I said. Prove it, Webb replied. By the time you sort through the legal mess, your business will be bankrupt from lawyer fees and government audits. That's when I understood the real game. This wasn't about Allison anymore. Webb was trying to salvage something from his failed blackmail operation by going after me directly. What do you want? I asked. $200,000, he said without hesitation. Cash. In exchange, all of Allison's research disappears forever. I pretended to consider his offer, knowing the FBI agents outside were recording every word. How do I know you won't come back for more? Because I'm leaving Arizona permanently, Webb said. This state's getting too hot for my line of work. I leaned forward, making sure the recording device caught every word clearly. So, you're admitting that you've been blackmailing other people besides Judge Martinez? Webb's eyes narrowed, but his ego was bigger than his caution. Judge Martinez was small-time. I've got files on half the city council, 3 state senators, and the mayor's chief of staff. Your ex-wife helped me gather intelligence on all of them. And you're planning to sell this information? Already have, he said proudly. Vegas casino interests paid very well for dirt on certain city planning commissioners. Amazing what people will do when they think their secrets are safe. That's when the FBI agents moved in. Webb barely had time to reach for his gun before Agent Hayes was behind him, service weapon drawn. Marcus Webb, Hayes announced, you're under arrest for conspiracy, extortion, and attempted bribery of federal officials. As they handcuffed Webb, he looked at me with pure hatred. You think you want something? Allison's got more surprises waiting for you. This isn't over. But I wasn't worried anymore. Webb was a small-time criminal who'd overplayed his hand. Allison was facing federal charges and had no money left to cause trouble. And me? I was free to rebuild my life without looking over my shoulder. Sometimes the best victory is simply outlasting your enemies. 6 months after Webb's arrest, I thought the nightmare was finally over. My business was thriving, the legal battles were behind me, and I'd started dating again. A graphic designer named Lisa, who understood the art world without the manipulation that came with Allison. Then Allison showed up at my flagship shop on a busy Saturday afternoon. She looked terrible. The polished, confident woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone hollow-eyed and desperate. She carried a baby that couldn't have been more than 3 months old, Trevor's child, born while he was in prison. Dylan, she said, approaching my station where I was working on a client's sleeve. I need to talk to you. I finished the section I was working on and stepped away with her. Allison, you're not supposed to contact me. The restraining order. I know, she interrupted, but I'm desperate. My parents kicked me out. I have no money, no job. The baby needs diapers, formula. I looked at the infant in her arms. Innocent in all this, paying the price for adult decisions. But that didn't change what Allison had done to me. That's not my responsibility, I said firmly. Please, she begged, tears starting to flow. I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed everything. But this baby didn't do anything wrong. My client, a regular named Mike who knew my story, stood up from the chair. Want to call the cops, Dylan? I shook my head. It's okay, Mike. Give me 5 minutes. I led Allison to my office in the back of the shop, keeping the door open. She sat down heavily, the baby fussing in her arms. Allison, I said, you made your choices. You chose Trevor over me. You chose to steal from me. You chose to try blackmailing a judge. Those choices have consequences. I know, she whispered. But I learned something about Trevor that changes everything. She pulled out a crumpled letter from her purse. This came from the prison. He's been writing to other women, telling them the same lies he told me. He has children with at least 3 other women. I read the letter, feeling a mix of vindication and disgust. Trevor was exactly what I'd suspected, a professional predator who targeted vulnerable women. Dylan, Allison continued, I know I can never make up for what I did, but I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. Everything with Trevor was manipulation, lies. He convinced me you didn't care about me anymore. But you believed him, I said. Instead of talking to me, instead of trusting your husband of 12 years, you believed a con man. She nodded, accepting the truth. I was weak. I was stupid. I let him convince me that I deserved better than what we had. I looked at her holding Trevor's baby, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But pity wasn't love, and trust, once broken, couldn't be rebuilt with tears and apologies. Allison, I said gently, I hope you find your way. I hope you build a good life for that baby. But it won't be with me. 2 years later, I stood in the grand opening of my 5th tattoo location, this one in Sedona. The shop was packed with clients, friends, and fellow artists celebrating another milestone in what had become a genuinely successful business empire. Lisa stood beside me, wearing the engagement ring I'd given her the week before. She understood my world, respected what I'd built, and most importantly, earned my trust through consistency and honesty. Penny for your thoughts, she said, squeezing my hand. Just thinking about how different life is now, I replied. Through the window, I could see the red rocks of Sedona, a landscape that had always symbolized rebirth and transformation to me. The man who'd sat in that courtroom 2 years ago, being mocked and humiliated, felt like a stranger now. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Santos. Thought you want to know, Allison got a job at a daycare center in Tucson. Seems to be doing well, staying clean. Trevor's parole was denied. I showed the message to Lisa, who smiled. I'm glad she's getting her life together. That was one of the things I loved about Lisa. She didn't harbor resentment toward people she'd never met. She understood that Allison's redemption didn't threaten our happiness. Jake, my lead artist, called for everyone's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to propose a toast to Dylan Brennan, a man who proved that sometimes the best revenge is just living well. As glasses raised around the room, I thought about the tattoo over my heart. Unbreakable. It had been more than ink and symbolism. It had been a promise to myself that I'd never again be the man who could be easily manipulated or discarded. Later that evening, as Lisa and I walked through Sedona's quiet streets, my phone rang one final time. Unknown number. Dylan, came a voice I hadn't heard in months. This is Allison. I almost hung up, but something in her tone made me hesitate. I just wanted to say thank you, she continued. I heard about your engagement, and I'm happy for you. You deserve someone who appreciates what you are. Allison, I'm not asking for anything, she said quickly. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I threw away. You were never the problem, Dylan. I was. I looked at Lisa, who nodded encouragingly. I hope you're happy, Allison, I said. I genuinely do. I'm learning to be, she replied. Goodbye, Dylan. The call ended, and with it, the last chapter of story that had nearly destroyed me, but ultimately made me stronger. Some phoenixes rise from ashes. Others rise from betrayal, learning to trust again while never forgetting the lessons that fire taught them.